Let a few people come in, get it going. All right, good morning, everybody. How's everybody doing? First day of RSA. You guys all ready? Get it going? Thank you for coming to this. I am so excited to work with these four people. You have no idea. We've been friends for a long, long time. I'll introduce them in a minute, but I just want to say hello. My name's Dave DeWalt, by the way. I'm the founder of NightDragon, and we're an investment and advisory firm. And we were just laughing whether it was good to be the first panel of RSA or the last, or was it a good thing or a curse, but we're all here. We made it early, bright and early, and excited to have everybody here. So thank you for coming. We are going to do a couple questions towards the end for those who want to ask a question. And if not, this group can talk for 4 hours, so watch out. We'll get it going. But I first want to just say what an honor it is. Oh my gosh, I know Chensi and Nadav and Mark and Yoav for a long, long time. You have over 100 years, I hate to age you all, over 100 years of venture capital experience standing up here and sitting up here. And it's just amazing, what an honor. These folks have built some of the most amazing companies over 100 years, like I said, but over 100 companies that they've invested into, many unicorns, some decacorns as well, multi-billion of capital. And built companies, started companies, grown companies, seen every life cycle of cyber for the last 20 years. So what an honor it is to be a part of all this. So maybe I'll ask you all to introduce yourselves for a minute. I could do justice to it, but Chensi, introduce yourselves. We'll go around just a little bit and then we'll jump into it. Is that cool? Yes. And I'll show their pretty pictures up here on the slide, right after the disclaimer. There you go.
Good morning. You should all be commended for showing up so early, first day, so thank you for being here. My name is Chensi Wang. I'm the founder and general partner of Rain Capital. We are a cyber-focused venture fund, so this is our home turf, so to speak. So I've been in cyber a long time. I used to work in a company that Dave was the CEO. Back then, to see Dave was a hard thing. And I also worked for a company that you're all invested in. So we all have very long lineage. And I squeezed my way into one of his companies, and that was one of the best investments I made. So I've been in cyber for a long time, started academic research, now did executive roles, and now investor. So very happy to be here.
Chensi's the only doctor on the stage as well, so I think.
You're a doctor too, right?
Well, I got an honorary doctorate degree. That doesn't count. She has a real doctorate degree. Thank you, Chensi.
Yeah,
Nadav?
I was lucky to make it out of high school. So, hi guys, Nadav Zafrir from Team 8. So I've been doing cyber for many years, as Dave said, but most of my career was actually on the other side. So I was in Unit 8200, it's the Israeli version of the NSA. And so for most of my career, I was trying to break into networks. And I had the government support to do it, so that was a lot of fun. At around 2014, when I finished my tenure as commander of 8200, we started Team 8, which is sort of a hybrid company building platform and an investor. And so what we do is we have a group of researchers. Many of them come out of 8200, and so they have the attacker's perspective. And we create a thesis. We create a thesis about where we think the world is going or where it might go, and what's about to break, where are the challenges going to be. Then we get into a dialogue with what we call our village, which is the CISO village, which is a great asset. And together, we find ideas and then match them with founders and build companies with them. And then join forces with some of our fellow investors to try to build companies that will solve some of the world's problems. Thank you.
Tough act to follow. Mark Hatfield with 1011 Ventures. First off, want to thank Sarah and NightDragon for setting this panel up. We're going to make it look easy, but the amount of work that goes into getting us up on stage here is Herculean
Just getting
effort.
all of you into a prep session was the
Alone,
hard part. Yeah.
right? Yes. So 1011 Ventures, cybersecurity focused fund. We're stage agnostic, so we can do seeds. So a good example there is Hidden Layers, which is in the Innovation Sandbox today. So hopefully everyone goes there at noon. and votes for hidden layers if we could, all the way up to later stage. So hidden layers, seed, all the way up to Barracuda. And then we're global. So we'll do about half our portfolio is US, North America, Canada, and half rest of world, which is Five Eyes, which translates a little bit maybe Western Europe and Israel. So that's kind of our hunting ground. Started in 2014, so we've been doing it for a while, and we're on our third fund. So
Tell everybody what 1011 means.
excellent question, Dave. So it's a tip of the hat to binary, 1-0, ones and zeros. The branding exercise was actually done at an event in Vegas called Black Hat. And it turns out that a hand with a 10 and 11 is actually a pretty good hand at blackjack. Another reason why. There's 10 or 11 reasons why we named it. The other one was the domain was available. So there's, and it sounds cool. And then we, June, first term sheet in October 10th is when we signed our first LP. So on October 11th. So it's 10-11 for that reason as well.
Part. Yeah, that's awesome.
Now that's a tough act to follow. We've had 3 investments with these guys, with 1011 guys, and I can only say that it's been an amazing experience working with them. Actually, the company that Chensi worked for or worked with at some point was Twistlock, which was a joint company of 1011 and Wild Ventures. So Wild Ventures aspires to be, Hope is the leading cybersecurity investor in Israel. Now, Nadav and team,
I'm in the middle.
yeah, exactly. Now, Nadav and Team 8 obviously have the same spot. I would say, and maybe Nadav would argue with me, but I would say Nadav is amazing at incubation and origination of ideas. They think of their own ideas and recruit entrepreneurs to come join them, and then they build companies. They're company builders. We are different in that we don't originate anything in-house. We partner with outside entrepreneurs that have their own ideas and come to us for capital, but not just capital. I think we're fairly well known for our value-add services. So we have 22 people on payroll who, all they do is help entrepreneurs succeed in their early years. Mostly the first couple years. So we have a 5-person marketing team that does their launch and PR and social media and even naming the company. We have a business development team of also about 5 people who are in touch with 3,000 CISOs in the US, helping push those products into the market. We have an HR team that helps them hire. We even have a product specialist that goes through their UX and UI and product screens and helps them refine their product. So, I think we're quite well known for our value-add services, and we're known for partnering with entrepreneurs who come with their ideas. And then we try to work with the best investors here in the US to further these companies along, 1011 being one of them. Night Dragon is an aspiration for us, and hopefully one day we'll work with them. Chensi, we've co-invested on a number of deals, and hopefully one day with Team 8 as well. So happy to be here and looking forward to contributing to this panel.
It's awesome. From here on out, we'll call them by their nicknames: YL, 1011, Team 8, and Rain, and Night Dragon. So that'll be our new way of getting addressed. So thank you, everybody, for coming. Let me maybe set the stage a little bit, if I can. One of the companies that is a part of the Night Dragon world, as well as all the worlds here, is a company called Momentum Cyber. And if you guys have ever seen it, they put together like a cyber landscape report, every statistic you could ever want to see when it comes to investing and trends and things like that. So I'm going to show a slide for a minute. There you go. And just set the stage for everybody to kind of see what's happening in the world of cyber. First of all, there's over 3,500 cyber companies. I'll start with that. And a very large number coming from Israel, which we'll get to in a minute as well. But just look at the stats. In 2022, it was a pretty incredible year, very tumultuous year, very unique year in the world of cybersecurity investing. But it's worth kind of looking at 13 $1+ billion M&A deals. And when you look at the total aggregate deal activity, $119.8 billion in total M&A volume. And this is now coming from a variety of different types of buyers in the world of cyber. So 20 years ago, it was a very small number of cyber titans, so to speak, acquiring. When I was CEO of McAfee or FireEye, there wasn't that many of us buying companies. Now you have sovereign wealth buying, you have private equity platforms buying, you have corporations buying, and not just corporations in the world of cyber, but corporations that you wouldn't think of necessarily in the world of cyber now crossing over and buying. So the volume is very high, 18.5 billion of financing as well in 2022. And this was up year over year from 2020 and 2021, which were record years in the world of cyber investment. This market now almost 200 billion a year in customer spending and growing. 1,037 financing deals, 263 deals. You guys can read for yourself, but pretty amazing deal. Look at the number there, 110 deals completed by private equity alone, to my point. So what are the private equity firms thinking about? Building mega platforms as well. I talk about it like one of the things I talk to is the clash of the titans, which is these big cloud titans like Amazon and Microsoft and Google buying their way in, investing their way in. Then the cyber titans like Palo Alto and CrowdStrike, Zscaler, others buying their way in, continuously buying. Palo Alto, if you haven't followed them, is at near all-time high valuation, despite the recessionary environment we're in. You know, trading at near 52-week high and all-time highs, 57 billion of market value. Could be our first $100 billion value company. Fortinet right behind them, CrowdStrike and others. It's a really interesting climate that's occurring with a lot of the titans getting bigger as they go. 15 plus new cybersecurity unicorns. Many of them probably came from this group, I think they have. And then 95 raises of capital over 50 million. So back in the day when I was raising capital for FireEye, when I was CEO, I was like, wow, 50 million was like an all-time high. So it's just interesting to watch the maturation of the market. But as the year went on in 2022, things started to change a little bit. Beginning of the year was very different than the end of the year. And as we enter into 2023, I want to start by having the group here talk a little bit about what they're seeing in the investment community, maybe globally first, and then I want to jump into Israel. So Chensi, I'll start with you if I can pick on you first, or whoever wants to start, but give a little summary of what you're seeing from the investment world, economy, threat environment, regulatory environment. Like, what are you seeing out there?
So it's certainly very interesting times we live in, right? Right now, we're seeing a lot of nearshoring, friendly shoring efforts in the U.S. What that means is we're pulling back some of the supply chain initiatives to be manufactured in the U.S. or in friendly countries. And that has engendered a lot of new requirements for not only for supply chain, also for cyber. So I see lots of national security initiatives, and we actually have been talking to some of our LPs who are looking at this as a new frontier for innovation. And so another thing that's really interesting, despite the softening in the economy, is that we see a ton of AI movements, right, as you have all seen. So now security for AI, not just bias or integrity, but also for accuracy, for robustness against attacks is high on everybody's list. So we're looking at those two areas as very fruitful investment areas.
That's awesome. We all have new AI tattoos that we're putting on. AI security, it's like the thing we got to talk about. Mark, do you want to go next?
Sure. Just building on that, we've been active ourselves at 1011. So we've done 5 new deals this year alone, 2 announced, 3 not yet announced. To Dave's point, one theme that we're seeing is just different regions around the world coming to light. Israel obviously being a hotbed of activity, but other areas we're seeing, the UK, a lot of excellent talent coming out of the various units in the UK. So kind of capitalizing on that, as well as Australia. So we're seeing activity out of Australia and the UK. So we at 1011, we haven't really slowed down. We're more selective in terms of the stage of investments we're going after. So seeing a lot of opportunities in the early stage, so seed and A, and then kind of on the later stage. So kind of like barbell approach in terms of where we're going from hunting.
Great, Dave. Do you want to put on that slide?
Yeah, absolutely.
Just
not to be undone, Yoav has his own slide too. So let's
So
show
I mean,
that.
this is
More colors.
yeah, more colors, more interesting. This is our annual State of the Cyber Nation report that gets put out on TechCrunch every January. And now we're sitting in April, so it's 3 months since this report came out. This report was focused on 2022. And I know it's a lot of small numbers, but overall, the funding for Israeli cybersecurity startups fell by a dramatic 64% compared with 2021. So only about $3 billion versus almost $9 billion in 2022. So this is something obviously we can't ignore. We view 2021 as the actual anomaly, right? So I mean, if you take 2021 out of it, you kind of get to more or less a straight line from 2020. But there has been a decrease in activity. You know, seed has still been strong. So actually seed has increased. Seed investments from 233 million in 2021 to 384 million in 2022. The big drop, of course, is in growth, especially later and later stage. I would say Series C and onwards have dropped by almost 80%. So, I mean, for us, that's something that we look at a lot because our seed stage companies that we back, you know, they rely on follow-on investors and growth financing, you know, for their future growth. So this is something that we get concerned about. But I'll tell you, you know, 2023 is already looking more positive. We just actually closed a big growth round last week for one of our seed stage companies, which was hugely encouraging to see. I would say we are fairly conservative, maybe more so than we have been in previous years. So making sure we're investing in huge opportunities and investing in companies that are in need as opposed to a nice to have for the CISOs. We talk to CISOs every day. We realize that they're under a lot of pressure, a lot of budgetary pressures. On the whole, I would say budgets are flat. I guess we'll get to the CISO point in a little bit. But we're just oversensitive in terms of making sure that we're investing in those companies that have staying power and that are going to be sort of the cream of the crop that follow-on investors are going to be interested. In terms of sectors of interest, I would say identity is very, very strong. We just launched an identity company about 3 weeks ago called Spera, which was a recent investment since July. We've made 4 investments since July, since our new fund, the $400 million fund. Other than that, like Chensi said, there's just a ton of buzz around AI. Chensi was saying it's a good area to kind of venture in and invest in. I would agree with that. I would also say just beware of the noise. I think we've seen 12 different AI security companies, either AI for security or security for AI type companies just this year. So it's getting to be a very crowded market. And then I'll say governance and compliance is another one that's kind of we're very interested in. There's a lot of interesting activity there.
Nadav, let me ask you a question then, and I want you to drill in as well for a minute. I think you all heard Nadav's background, right? So 25 plus years, Israeli Defense Force 8200, understands the threat environment really, really well. Could you create a little context for everybody as we come into 2023? I know you know the Russia-Ukraine situation, you know sort of this deglobalization, decoupling problem that's beginning to occur. Kind of use your words to describe the macro for a minute, and then I want to drill into some technology areas that come out of that. Right. So maybe help the audience with that for a sec.
Sure. So if you look at what happened since we were sitting in the different rooms here in the Moscone Center in 2022, this has been sort of the changes that we've seen in the last 12 months are almost overwhelming. If you think about it, this is probably the first time in all of our lives that the world is becoming deglobalized and polarized in a way that we haven't seen before. So all of our economy that was based on globalization, specialization, and the prosperity that came with that, the interdependencies that came with that, this is something that has been reversed. We came to a halt and a serious reverse in the last year. And it changes everything. I mean, if you look at the Russian war in Ukraine, It's not over. It doesn't seem that it's going to be over. If you look at the tensions between the United States and China, Chenxi spoke about the nationalization or onshoring of the supply chain. This is changing the way we think about security. In many ways, what we're seeing is security becoming a different aspect, or cyber becoming a different aspect. In my opinion, cyber is no longer just about security. It's become a critical aspect of national geopolitical resilience. And not only governments have to change the way they operate, also private companies. So if you look at the war in Ukraine, what did we learn from a cyber perspective, right? So number one, we knew this before, but now it's been outed by Conti, that there is complete collaboration between cyber criminals and governments, specifically in Russia, so we knew it before, now everybody knows it. On the other hand, and we've seen private companies need to step in and choose sides. Microsoft is a good example. Take out Microsoft from the Ukraine conflict, perhaps the Russians would have prevailed already. So this is a totally new environment that we're operating in. And Starlink from Elon Musk, et cetera. And so we're seeing private companies come in and take a stand. I think this is not going away, and I think it's changing the way we think about security, right? Now, you might think, well, supply chain, we've spoken a lot about supply chain during COVID and the physical supply chain, the cyber supply chain. Perhaps now that we're going to have sort of supply chains coming back home, that will change because there's we no longer have the interdependencies. But when you think about it, underneath everything, we're all still interdependent for the next few years. On the other hand, the ambition of nation states to attack each other, I think, is rising. Because we're no longer sort of a global interdependent economy, but rather independent, interdependent economies across the globe. And so when you think about the technologies that have become very, very important in this kind of environment, one thing that has become critical is our OT environments, right? And they're the ones that are probably going to be focused on in the next couple of years from nation states, because it is going to be sort of an open season for cyber attacks going forward. We're seeing some of that already rising, and we think it's going to go up. One example, by the way, that this is actually a joint project that Yoav and I have is Clarity. That's now we've merged it with Medigate that does security for hospitals and medical devices. We've merged that with Clarity that does the SCADA systems, and we are seeing demand for that growing dramatically. So that's one area I think that you're going to see a lot more.
If you're watching the next 1 year, there'll probably be more mergers between this group just coming out of this session. So I love the Medigate and Clarity one, by the way. And I can't underscore enough what Nadav just said, because I don't know if you've seen like a lot written about this multipolar world that we're coming into, right? So this globalization, deglobalization, nation states looking to decouple, de-risk their own worlds as best as they can. You mentioned supply chain, but physical security areas, space is a whole nother domain, air is a whole nother domain, food, energy, healthcare. The pandemic really brought about a lot of changes in nationalism just related to vaccines and movement of mRNA. So it's just a really interesting world that was going like this. It's starting to balkanize in a different way, creating, in my opinion, not just a really interesting world, like they say, may you live in interesting times, both a curse and a blessing, but we really have some really new things that are happening in the world that is really going to be affecting things from a digital point of view. So with that backstop, Chenxi, maybe I'll start with you. Like, each of you give one big area of tech that you're like, this is an area that you see as like a category coming or a category on its way. Maybe do an area, I think you each touch on a little something, but I'd be really curious from your great vantage points, what do you see as one big one?
So every once in a while, we see a huge change in technology, sometimes broader than cyber, will engender a big shift in strategy in cyber, right? Cloud is one, for instance, and AI is now the new one. Now, although I agree with you all, there are a lot of snake oil in AI, but if you look at what we're doing with it, right? So I'm involved in some of the conversations with the US government. They asking similar questions as the EU Commissioner's Office. They're asking exact same questions about how should we use AI? How should we do policies governing the use of AI? And by the way, Chinese government is asking the same set of questions. And on top of that, what's interesting is we all have access to similar technology today on AI, right? The defense side and the attack side both can use ChatGPT just as well. And by the way, anybody here has heard of AutoGPT? Have you heard of AutoGPT? Yeah, AutoGPT is super interesting, right? So GPT today, you ask one question and it gives you an answer. AutoGPT, you can ask higher level questions, and AI knows to break that question down to smaller questions and then ask itself those smaller questions recursively until it's satisfied with the answer, right? For instance, I can ask question, how should I structure my Monday so I'm most fulfilled, right? ChatGPT knows to break that down and ask itself question. By the way, coming to this panel would start your day really well, for instance. But having that kind of capability, right? And you can see the potential, but also the danger of having this kind of decision-making capability. So I'm looking at, for instance, the security for AI. You cannot just fund security teams. You have to have AI expert, true AI expert on the team. Otherwise, security guys don't know what they're talking about. Right? So that kind of frontier technology and how to assess its accuracy, how to assess its robustness. Do we know that somebody's injected malicious data into the model, right? And how do you project what the next generation model is going to be? So those are all very, very interesting questions, will have long-lasting impact.
Mark, maybe drill down on that a little bit if you would. I know you made a big investment in AI security areas, and if you want to jump to another area too, that's fine, but tell everybody if you would, like, what's the problem in AI a little bit? I mean, Chensi was just alluding to that, but poisoning of models, where they come from, how they need to be managed. Just say a few words about that market for a minute, if you would, and why you invested into a company in that early stage.
Well, it's very, so when you were running McAfee, right, so that malware was present, and that's when you were doing it, before CrowdStrike, Cylance, and the new endpoint players came along. It was all signature-based, so the bad actors would take, unfortunately, your product and use it for quality.
Not McAfee product.
No, Symantec, those guys.
Symantec.
Yeah. So the same is happening today. So the bad guys can harvest the models that the companies have used, turn it against them. So to Chensi's point, not securing your algorithms or your models now is becoming the target testing ground, if you will, for the bad actors. So we could talk AI all day long. Another area just that we're really excited about is security teams today, the number of tools that they have in their organizations, and the number of times the security teams are sunsetting technologies. So what's happening is we're just layering on a new set of tools every time. How do you help the security teams identify which tools are relevant for their environment and which ones should they sunset? So the benefits of that are reduction in cost, and most importantly, you're not having to train your teams on multiple different technologies that you don't necessarily need. So we're spending a ton of time on efficiencies for the security teams, and that really bleeds into the must-have versus nice-to-have. So in this environment today, budgets are holding, but there's still a lot of scrutiny in terms of the security budget. So having a capability that is a must-to-have versus a nice-to-have in this environment is definitely beneficial for the startups and their ability to get customers, which at the end of the day is
Yep.
a good thing to have, I think.
Yoav and then Nadav, why don't you both talk from the view of the CISO for a minute? You both have very, I think, finger on the pulse of the CISO. What are they saying right now to the point of simplicity and potential reductions? And what do you both see? You have big villages, you work with the CISOs all the time. What's the view from them on what they see most important going forward?
Yeah, so I would say two things. The first one is actually what Mark was just talking about. So if you guys were not listening, maybe I'll repeat just a little bit. CISO organizations security organizations are being scrutinized right now, right? So, why do you have this budget? What are the KPIs? What are you delivering to the organization? Are we being hacked more? Are we hacked less? Why do we need 200 people or 2,000 people in this organization? And it's not just the people, it's the tools, as Mark was mentioning, and it's the processes, it's the efficiency. I think that's top of mind for CISOs right now, and it has been for the last quarter or so. So that's what they're talking to us about. And so we've actually seeded a company in this area. It's still stealth, it's not announced yet, but it's fully analyzing, trying to automate, the data gathering, in the sensors. How do we measure everything that's going on in the CISO organization, and how do we improve on that? So that is, for us, really the number one area right now. The other one that I'm having a lot of fun with is actually an identity. And this is something that, identity, people have been talking about that for 15 years. But it's especially interesting now because it's so messed up. If you think about the number of identities that each of you have at your companies across the different tools and different environments, starting with Active Directory and going down from there, it's just incredible. And companies that are able to organize that, make that more efficient for security's sake, right? The perimeter used to be the firewall, the checkpoints and the early Palo Alto networks, then next generation firewall, then cloud, and now identity. Identity is the new perimeter, and we're having a ton of fun with that.
Yeah, fun. Nadav, you start up companies, a couple every year. I mean, what are the latest ones you're building from scratch? And obviously this comes from the CISO community yourself. So maybe give an example or two of what you're building lately.
Sure. So, I'll actually go back to cloud. I mean, we've been talking about cloud for the last, 15 years? But if you look at real enterprise migration to cloud, we're still in the beginning. And I think the tools that we see today for cloud security are predominantly about visibility. And I think that we believe that our thesis, at least at Team 8, is that the journey will be similar to the journey that we've seen at the endpoint, right? You start with visibility and you go from there. And then you have the EDR and the XDR. And so we think you're going to see something similar in the cloud. And there are already some names, big names, that have done tremendously well in the cloud in terms of cloud security companies, the Orcas of the world, the Wizards of the world, the Laceworks of the world. So one thing that we're looking at right now is what we call defense in depth in the cloud. So from left to right. So one company that we're working on that's out here today is Aux for the DevOps. So we're thinking about what's going to happen before your workload even gets to the cloud. Right, so and in some ways, I think it's a next-gen cybersecurity company in the sense that it's not a cybersecurity company. It's an enterprise software company that has cyber embedded into it. So it's actually a tool that makes developers more efficient. Now with their co-pilot from ChatGPT, so the man-machine team works together. But they have someone that's looking at the code all the time, making sure that it's more efficient, more secure before it even gets to the cloud. Then on the other side of the cloud, we've got another company that we just launched, which is called GEM, and that's sort of the cloud DR, so detection and response for the cloud, right? So you throw things into the cloud. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter how good you are, there are going to be problems in the cloud. And again, they may be cybersecurity problems or they may be operational problems, Gem will come on the other side from the detection and response in the cloud and solve it for you. And in the middle, we invested in a company actually that we didn't start ourselves that's called Dig Security, that's doing the data security for the cloud. And because of what my partners here, my colleagues here said, which I totally agree with, CISOs can no longer become integrators of technologies and shelfware, et cetera, especially in an economy that has turned in the last couple of years. And so what we're trying to do at Team8, which is kind of a novel concept, is these are specific companies, but they work in an integrated platform based on the same thematic thought that we're coming from our research group. The last thing I'll say about that is that if you think about the CISO's job, how many of you in the room are CISOs? I feel for you. First of all, you are doing critical work. Seriously, I mean, the CISOs are in some ways really my heroes. It's a job that is almost impossible to excel in. And right now, it's not just, and again, I think it's changing to a point where the CISO's job is no longer just about security. Because I'm sure your CEO or your CFO or your CDO or your board is saying, hey, what do we do with this new ChatGPT? Everybody's using it. Do we allow it? Do we not allow it? And we're seeing controversy around it, right? And so, remember when I said a cloud has been around for 15 years and you still have consultants to tell you how to do cloud migration? Let me tell you something. If you have consultants 10 years from now with regards to AI migration, you won't have those consultants because you won't be. And so CISOs need to educate themselves, get out of the comfort zones, and not only request, but actually demand a seat at the table where decision making is being made. And those decisions are not security decisions. There are decisions about the business, there's decisions about strategy, there are decisions about geopolitical situations where the CISO has become actually, I think, the advocate that can actually come to the decision-making desk or table where decisions are made and support those decisions.
Love it. Jency, do you want to add on to that?
Yeah, one thing that I want to add, I also, I sit on the Fortune 500 board, so I help the CISO do a little bit of a governance work on cyber, and I know you do too. So one of the things in the US that's happening is the SEC is demanding enhanced cyber reporting. I don't know how many of you are from public companies. If you are, then your board will be asking you how you are going to meet those new guidelines. So for instance, the new guideline, one of the new guidelines is that in the past, if you have a breach that over, I don't know, maybe 500 records you have to report. Now they're saying that if you have a series of breaches over a period of time that aggregated together, it's over a certain threshold you have to report. So what that means is the security team has to keep really good record so that you can prove to legally that you've done your job, right? And how do you do that? And where do you keep reporting? Where do you keep data and what kind of data to keep? They're all very open questions. So I think CISO's job is getting harder, and because you're being pushed to do more and with less budget.
Yeah.
Right. So that's and I think what you're talking about, having CISOs really understand the effectiveness of the strategy is really important.
Okay, I'm going to ask for crowd questions in 1 minute, so think about your best question. But I do want to underscore what everybody's saying. Night Dragon, by the way, we focus on growth stage, and a little bit later than everybody up here, we look for companies in that 20 to 80 million revenue range, and then we try to hyperscale them from a go-to-market point of view. Night Dragon's focus has been on that. A few of them mentioned some areas that I look at quite a bit with Night Dragon. We talked about this sort of deglobalization and what does that bring. So we look at all the tangential areas to cyber, one of which is industrial that Nadav mentioned. You know, we're about 5-6% maybe penetrated with security products in our industrial OT networks. In the next 3 to 4 years, that's going to be 50, 70, 80% penetration without a doubt. That market is coming. We have 3 companies now, over 100 million of revenue in the OT space. We're going to see our first $1 billion revenue company, in my opinion, coming out of that sector in the next couple of years. The cyber physical areas of convergence as well, where physical threats can manifest in cyber, or cyber can manifest in physical threat. Another area, one of the companies we're involved with is called Dataminr. If you haven't seen them, they create a multimodal AI platform where you can fuse video, sound, text together into an AI engine to drive alerting mechanisms in 150 languages around the world to create speed to an alert and a response, either cyber or physical. Supply chain, another big area where we think a large company will emerge, because cyber risk in the supply chain is one thing, but with all this decoupling, supply chain becomes critical around risk. The only way you solve that is AI as well. So we believe a monster company is coming out of that supply chain world as well. And there's about 10 of those themes that we see at Night Dragon, that cyber is becoming an element of something else. And that ubiquity of cyber is creating mega platforms in and around this traditional cyberspace that's very interesting. So kind of cool things to look out for from all of us that are here. So maybe I can ask the crowd, any questions from you all, bright and early? There's a microphone right here. Maybe Mickey, stand up. I apologize. And ask the group.
I see these nice graphs, and there is information until end of 2022. But what's happening in first quarter of this year? Is it going up or down investment? What is landscape like very recent moment? Things happening so fast.
So the question is, what's going forward in 2023? If we had to draw this up 1 year from now, Yoav, Nadav, what do you think?
So this is Israel, right? You might want to also get the answer for for the rest of the world. Look, 2023, started very much the way that 2022 was, right? So we saw the same kind of trends, mostly the kind of continued silence or near silence in late stage VC in the Israel cybersecurity market. There was maybe one or two exceptions. However, I would say as Q2 came along, all of a sudden, a few deals got done. These are a few data points, but I would say I've been asked about this a lot in the last few days. I would say I'm encouraged about the way Q2 has started out. I'm optimistic. So, hopefully I'm right, and hopefully, next time we put out that report, we'll show a great 2023.
I'll make one quick comment, if I could, on to what Yoav said. Was I think it's the year of M&A, right? I just see so many of the cloud and cyber titans having to buy to keep their growth rates up and their market caps up. That slide I was just showing you, I think, where is it, where it shows the public comps. You can see the decline in the high growth areas and the hack indexes, and the growth rates, organic growth rates of some of the biggest cyber and cloud companies who have cyber divisions is coming under some pressure, and that's going to force them into acquisition. So I think you're going to see a very large plethora of M&A activity in the back half of the year. So we're going to be standing here a year from now, I think, talking about some mega M&A moves that are being made, Mandy and Google-like things, but Microsoft, Amazon, others entering the fray. So one man's view. Nadav, did you want to comment there too? Yeah. How about another question? Ma'am?
Yeah, I didn't want to interrupt. No problem. No problem. Thank you, and thank you for the conversation. It's critically important. I represent a team of world-renowned emergency communications scientists with deployments about 75% of the world around emergency communications infrastructure. We're an early stage, very important technology that truly fills a gap, creates an opportunity for unaddressable, persistent cybercrime detection, but the ability to communicate it in an out-of-band way. We're early stage, pre-production, but the risk and the threat really warrants some real brazen, and that's why I'm standing here right now. I heard you look at little later stage. If there's any way to have conversation around a pre-production technology that is so needed right now, I would love that conversation.
The bidding begins in a couple minutes here.
Yeah, yeah.
Chensi, you want to comment?
I'm being
Dave-
brazen because the threat requires
Dave is
it.
a late-stage investor. I think all of us do early stage here.
Okay.
And I do very early stage. I do 2-person with a slide deck. If I like it, we'll invest.
I just connected with you or gave you a message very similar to that, so I look forward to conversation.
Thank you for your service.
You bet.
Great question. Yes, sir?
I am an Indian early stage company. We did pre-series A at about 40 million. Two things, since cyber becomes the new nuclear and we realized we are dealing with a highly polarized world, how important to you is the source of the company? In the sense that since you've talked about geopolitics and supply chain disruptions, in India we work on largely cyber physical system and OT security, threat intelligence and detection engines. And we've seen attacks on critical infrastructure going really high. And since India is one of the major players in G20 countries, a lot of other countries are also adopting the technologies that we are developing. So is that a point also that you take into consideration?
Yeah, you know, it's this afternoon actually. Ann Johnson and myself from Microsoft are going to be talking. I'm advertising my talk this afternoon. It's so
Okay.
exciting. We're going to be talking about the cyber poverty line. What time is it? 2 o'clock. Just at the West Moscone. Just I don't remember. But we're going to be talking about the cyber poverty line, and the reason I'm bringing that up is in this depolarized world, we do believe that the responsibility of enterprise changes, not because of some philanthropic sort of but because we are going to remain interdependent. If you remember when President Biden got elected, one of the first trips he did was to Russia, and he met with Putin. It was leaked that one of the in the 4 items that he had, cybersecurity was number 1, saying, "Hey, you got to do something about this Conti group." Now, that's not happening in the next couple of years, right? Forget that. That's the old world. That is the old world. However, we do need to bring together countries, companies, organizations that share the same values and work together to bring up the cyber poverty line so that we can all remain secure in this polarized world, right? And I think one of the things that means is that we have to choose sides, right? And so to your question, the answer is, if you're on the right side of history, with the right scruples, the right morals, and the right vision, then absolutely we can work together to create sort of a higher cyber poverty line.
I love it. Hold on, we got like lots of questions coming here, so I'm going to give everybody a chance. By the way, to your comment, there's a piece out that my team had written about India Rising. 294 companies, cyber companies built in India. It's an amazing innovation world coming for investors around the world. You know, it's a really fun place to watch with everything happening. So, congrats. This young lady has been promising back here to ask a question, and I think we only have time for one more question. So.
Hi there. First of all, thank you for your wisdom. My name is Mariana. I am CEO of a on-demand cybersecurity marketplace. We're working to automate the demo process and put that in a marketplace. One thing I didn't see up here in terms of the cyber investment landscape were numbers around the amount of money going to women founders, which is a number that has dropped dramatically from 2021. So I'd love to know your investment thesis on diversifying the landscape and investing in women and founders of color. Thank you.
Come on, women. Who wants to answer that?
You guys should. They're not.
Okay. All right. So, look, diversity is important in any leadership group. It makes the group better. I personally, coming from a military background, I can tell you that in 8200, which is based on mandatory service and chooses the top 1% on a nation state level every year from the high school students, 52% of the recruits are women. And what I've learned is that the ones that make it to the top if I can choose between a male and a female that are almost the same, I will always choose the woman because I know she had to work harder to get there. I can tell you that one of the best companies that we started, and we spoke about it today, is Clarity. And it was started by Galina Antova, who is a woman founder, and she's phenomenal. She's built one of the, I think, what will become the #1 company in OT security in the world. So kudos.
So my fund one, small fund, 38% of founders are female. Right? It's a, look at that number comparing to Silicon Valley is only 2%. My fund two is not doing too well in terms of diversity because we're still early, but we need people like you to stand up and put yourself out there, say, I'm a founder, I have something to say, and I need a seat at the table. So if you are a founder or you're thinking about being a founder, please contact me and any of these gentlemen. We all love diversity and we want to support diversity.
Heck yeah. Okay, we got to wrap up. By the way, I have 4 female founders at Night Dragon too, so we're all working, and 2 daughters that I hope found companies later in life. I just want to say thank you, everybody. I'm sorry I can't ask any more questions, but Yoav, Mark, Nadav, Chensi, thank you so much. Give them a big round of applause, please. Thank you. Great. We'll see you all at RSA. Thank you. Take care, everybody. Right on time.